Hello, Scott. For the record, could you please tell us who you are, where you live, and where you are coming from?
Hi, Ed. Good to be with you. My name is Scott Marshall. I'm a lawyer in Kincardine, Ontario. I've been in practice here since 2006. So, I guess about 20 years. And a few years longer, I would think. I'm coming up on 60, but still going.
You're a young man. So tell me, where did we meet? How did we meet first?
Well, as far as I recall, Ed, we met through the Kincardine Theatre Guild. When I first arrived in Kincardine, I joined the Theatre Guild, and you were also a member, and we took part in some productions together.
And do you mind if I ask you what was our role? We had a common role in our first play.
Well, I seem to remember dressing up as a lady with you.
Is that the same as the drag queen?
No, I don't think it was Priscilla. I can't remember the name of the character, but um, I've seen photographs of us baring our legs and wearing dresses. So, but I can't remember the name of the production or what
The
the
play
name
was
of the
called
character was.
Fashion. The play was called Fashion Fever.
Fashion Fever. Okay, that's it.
And how it started was they found when they moved the wardrobe from one place to another, they found we've got thousands of wardrobes that have never been worn in the last 25 years. So the idea was to air all that wardrobe. And so each of us, between you and me and others, each of us had maybe 6, 7, 8 costume changes. And that's why we went from pirates to whatever else we did. But having said that, my recollection of a young man there called Scott Marshall was that while everybody else was sitting with a folded piece of paper or small notebook trying to memorize 4 lines that they're going to do, Scott Marshall would be reading something like War and Peace.
Well, for the record, Ed, I've never read War and Peace. I've never been able to. I think I may have started it as a young man, but I never finished
But everything you read was at least 5,000 pages long, like the yellow pages.
it.
Anyway. So, Scott, tell me about what kind of law you practice.
Well, Ed, I am a small town general practitioner, so that means I do quite a bit of real estate work, transactions, buying and selling, mortgages. I do wills and estates. I do corporate and commercial. Years ago, when I first arrived, I did some family law, but I've stepped away from that. I have an associate who does family and criminal law working with me, and I do the solicitor side of things, the paper pushing things.
So, Scott, when I say what do you specialize in, I don't mean literally just you, your firm. You just mentioned about your partner or side employee does something else. So, the whole corporation that you own, what all do you cover? Do you cover everything?
Well, it's pretty broad, Ed. Yeah. So all of the traditional solicitor services one would expect, like as I said, real estate, wills and estates, corporate, and Ethan, my associate, um, does family and criminal law. I don't do any civil litigation, but other than that, we do a bit of everything really. And as a general practitioner, I'm kind of like the family doctor. You might come in with something that I can't do myself, but I can triage and refer you to a more specialized lawyer. So I do that quite often too. When someone has say uh, a lawsuit or something that they're faced with, I'll refer them to a firm I know that has a good reputation as a litigation firm.
So, I should have really asked you for the shorter list saying, what do you not cover?
What do I not cover? Well, as I said, I don't do civil litigation anymore. Um, Sophisticated securities work, involving publicly listed companies, that's beyond my scope of practice. I do plenty of work for private corporations, small corporations, but the, the prospectuses and things like that that are required for publicly listed companies, that's not something I could do.
And are you restricted to a certain part of Canada or Ontario?
Well, I'm licensed in Ontario, so I'm not committed to practice in the other provinces unless I become members of their respective law societies as well.
So if the person who's suing me is in Manitoba, what happens? You
Well,
can't.
then the person may be living in Manitoba but suing you in Ontario, so an Ontario lawyer could still help then. If the
Okay,
lawsuit was in Manitoba, you'd need counsel in Manitoba.
I see. And what if that Manitobain is renting my home in Manitoba and he's giving me a hard time?
Then I would say you need counsel in Manitoba to deal with them.
I see. Okay.
Not necessarily counsel. If it's a landlord-tenant thing, quite often paralegals do that sort of work more cost effectively than lawyers do.
And for the lesser educated people like engineers, can you clarify what's a paralegal?
A paralegal is someone who has some legal training but is not a lawyer, has a diploma of some kind from usually a community college. So they're more specialized than a law clerk, but they're not licensed to do everything that a lawyer could do.
So it's not a lawyer who didn't make the grade. It's a totally different field.
Well, it's in the legal field, but they're not lawyers. They're licensed by the Law Society in Ontario to do certain things. That they have a certain scope of practice they can work in, but they're not lawyers. So they couldn't, for example, represent you in court in a lawsuit or defend you in a criminal trial. That would be something you would need a lawyer for.
But in small claim courts, they could
Small
represent.
claims courts, absolutely, yes, they could help you with that.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think we've talked enough about your career and your business, and we can come back to that. But let me ask you something very, 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 very different that you may not be prepared for. When you were a kid, did you ever dream that you would be a lawyer?
No, I didn't, to be honest. I don't remember as a child what my career ambitions were. I did the normal boyhood things, like I ran around the neighborhood playing cowboys and Indians with a cap gun and rode my chopper motorcycle, not motorcycle, bicycle around the neighborhood. But I suppose maybe I thought about the things that many children think about, like maybe being a fireman or a policeman, but not a lawyer, no.
Okay, so then what influenced you to become a lawyer? And what I'm trying to lead to is trying to find out how much parents and adults force children to make these decisions, or is that good or bad?
Well, in my case, my parents had nothing to do with my choice of career. I graduated with an English degree and worked for a couple of years, and a friend of mine was taking the examination to apply to law school, and I thought I will borrow his books and write the test myself, and I did and did well enough, and so I took that path.
So was there anything that you saw in your elders, seniors, life and career that you said, hey, this is something I don't want to do? I'm saying the opposite of picking lawyer. Is there something they were doing that you never wanted to do?
Well, my dad was a salesman when I was a boy, and that's something that didn't appeal to me. I didn't like the idea of knocking on doors and approaching people and saying, "Would you like to buy this product, or can I sell you this product?" That wasn't for me. Although I suppose to a certain extent, we all have to sell our services, but
Yeah. Yeah, so the door-to-door or the encyclopedia salesman is the typical thing that comes to mind. But generally speaking, and everything
well, my father was a traveling salesman, so he was on the road.
okay, right, okay, yeah, yeah. And going through from your whenever teenage or younger age, when did you or did you ever have a tough situation which changed your life? Taught you a lesson, changed your life?
Well, my parents divorced when I was quite young. I think I was 7 or 8, and my mother worked full time, so my sister and I were left on our own a lot. So I suppose that taught me a certain amount of self-reliance. I took on board that you couldn't rely on other people, that you had to forge your own way and make your own decisions and get on in life without expecting help from others.
Now, I'm sorry if I got into your personal life there. I didn't mean to. But again, you're talking about your strength now. And I guess we couldn't have got there without talking about your past. So your sister and you, how many years apart were you?
We're exactly the same age. We're twins.
Oh, I see. That's nice. And within twins also, could you be an hour or two older or younger?
My sister is 5 minutes older.
And I often hear of expression that identical twins. Are you identical twins?
No, because we're different genders.
Oh, I see. I see. So you don't scratch your right cheek when she scratches her.
Not that I've ever noticed, no.
Okay. Okay. Now that I've got into your personal life, is there a story that you never told your children that you want to tell your grandchildren someday? Fun incident, anything that happened, good or bad?
Oh, I don't know, Ed.
Okay, we can come back to that if you like later.
Mhm.
And tell me who made you laugh the most at home?
Well, my sister and I used to laugh when my father, uh, when he was a young man, had a tumor or something in his above his jaw and had radiation, and as a result, his teeth fell out.
Oh,
So he had a full set of false teeth, and he would always make my sister and I laugh by pushing them out of his mouth at us, pushing his teeth out.
that can be scary. What's the worst trouble that you got in with your sister?
With my sister, oh, I suppose just the usual things like making a mess in the kitchen or not tidying our rooms. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, you know your grandchildren are going to be watching this one day. They say, Grandpa, you weren't tidy either.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
You're going to hear a few days ago.
I'll be the grandfather, so I won't have to discipline them. That'll be up to their parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to what we're talking about, career guidance. If my parents hadn't forced me to go for engineering, I would have just been a cowboy. All I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do was ride motorcycles and ride horses. And didn't pay minimum wage, but I didn't worry about it that time. So I'm glad my parents didn't let me drop out. Now I tried very hard that I wouldn't force my son and my daughter, but I guess subtle hints we were giving them all the time. So when my son was a teenager, he made a bold statement saying anything but dad's profession. However, the way God works things, he was brilliant in math. He was so good that at grade 10, he was picked for University of Waterloo math. And he was just 5 years ahead of his time. So he went to university, he picked all the math that he wanted to study, and they said, you can't get this unless you go into engineering.
Mhm.
So he became an engineer by default.
Oh, so he did in the end become an engineer.
Yeah,
My
but
sons have no interest or had no interest in my profession. They have pursued very different paths. One is like you, became a mechanical engineer, is now doing his master's in mechanical engineering, and the other one is did a biology degree of some kind and is working and thinking of applying to medical school. So very different from being a lawyer.
yeah, yeah, but they're still professionals.
Still professions, yeah.
Yeah. And the point that I keep telling professionals is like, for 3 years, I drove a taxi, and out of need, out of making ends meet, pressure to put meet. But my point was that as an engineer, I could always drive a cab. But if you're only a cabbie, you couldn't say, I'll go moonlighting as an engineer.
Mhm.
So you got to get some education. The other point I'd like you to elaborate on this, I've just learned recently that in India, where I come from, we all talk about after school going to college, okay, which is fair. But in India, college means everything from becoming a doctor, engineer, bachelor, MBA. Here, college is totally different. You still got a big field to go for doing a master's or university. So, and the price wise expense that you put out after school, you can go to college and have a 5 year loan, but university can be a 20-year loan. So you're in trouble forever, depending on what field you're going. So that's something that we need to be prepared for and prepare our children for. Because school is great, free education, but after 11th or 12th, big expenses coming up, much more than mortgages.
Well, I know in the US, student loan debt is a great burden for many young people, yes. And tuition is skyrocketed there.
And
Fortunately, my sons had some savings put by for it, and I contributed some money towards it. So and one had his tuition paid for because his mother worked for the university that he attended. So I'm fortunate that they're not overly burdened by student debt.
yeah, that's the financial part. And the other part is your influence. Either it's spoken or directly or not, they understand that if they drop out of grade 10 and work at the flower shop, you're great for a few years, but you're not going to rise too much further when you're in your 60s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, big problem I see in the town of Kincardine. We have extreme wage disparity between Bruce Power employees and the non-Bruce Power employees.
Different world, yes.
And till recently, I knew about this fact from the time I came here, but till recently, I didn't realize that a lot of people who are not demanding big paychecks are not guaranteed 40 hours a week. So, besides being lower paid, if the weather's bad, they're sent home. So, restaurants close early and you're gone home without pay.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are things that Bruce Power people didn't have to worry about. And it's a big burden. They have same kind of expenses as Bruce Power people and same children, same mouths to feed, but all of a sudden you're only getting 30 hours a week. So
it's a struggle in Kincardine, especially housing costs, if you're not making Bruce Power wages, yes.
okay. Okay. I know you're very good at the theater, but I've also heard you sing. So can you tell me what genre is your favorite?
Acting or singing?
I can't hear you.
What is my favorite at? I didn't catch the
What
question.
kind of music?
Oh, what kind of music? Well, in the office all day, I have a classical music station playing just because it's pleasant and calming, but I like other forms of music as well. I like country music and some rock music, and jazz and blues. My tastes are quite eclectic.
So you got a musical ear, and what instrument do you play?
Well, I'm not that musical. In school, I played the tuba, but
Oh, that's quite a
I
challenge.
wasn't very good, and I never kept it up. So I can't claim to play an instrument really.
Yeah, yeah. I've just recently joined the Point Clark Swing Club. It's the elders club, but 2 nights a week, 2 nights a month, they have a jam session. And I went there yesterday, so second and fourth Saturday, Thursday of the month. About 30, 40 people came up there. Maybe
What do you
people.
play, Ed?
Was that?
What instrument do you play?
I don't play anything, but I love it, and I've tried everything and failed. But I appreciate it. And there were a lot of guitars, a lot of other instruments. A violin, fiddle, I just adore anybody who can play a bagpipe or a fiddle. You know, those darn things are so noisy and painful to the ear if it's not played properly.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed that, and I'm going to be going back. And I think, recently I started stand-up comedy, and that has taken off quite well. But I do it basically for mental health and suicide prevention. And do you have any feel about where we are in Kincardine about that subject? Not comedy, I'm talking about mental health.
Well, I know there's a community mental health drop-in center or clinic of some kind on Queen Street. I don't know much about the services they provide, or I'm sure they're quite valuable and that they help people, but I don't know much about them, Ed. But I'm sure they provide a valuable service because mental health is an issue that affects many of us.
Right. So it's a leading question I got into. I've been involved with them for 40 some years. And every now and then we run into a situation where a person needs good counsel and they don't have a penny. Now, I know the government provides legal aid and all that, but is that something that you also get involved in?
In counseling?
Yeah.
Not mental health counseling. I suppose there's a little bit of overlap. You know, if somebody has a legal issue that can affect their mental health. So there's a little bit of overlap in terms of advice you give them that might help that aspect of things as well. But no, I'm not a mental health counselor.
Not mental health, but like one of the questions we talked about the other day was writing of will. All of a sudden dad is dying and my siblings forced him, held a gun to his head to change the will. So I'm out of it, right? Or people who are landing up in the women's shelter, husbands or spouses usually are changing things. Is there any kind of help that they can count on?
Well, we see some of those people through the family law courts, and if they're not particularly well off, they can get legal aid certificates, and we get legal aid clients. We help them.
Okay, that's what I was getting to. So you are covering them too, and it could be for any subject that you cover.
No, family or criminal law for legal aid.
I see. How about real estate? Well, that comes in the family, I guess.
Legal aid doesn't cover real estate. That's private.
I see. Okay. Okay. And somewhere I think you mentioned to me that if somebody needs you, you can give them so many minutes of free counseling before they decide whether they're signing you on or not.
Well, as a general rule, I don't turn people away if they have a problem they want to discuss. And I'm even if it doesn't turn into a file, I'll spend 20 minutes to half an hour with them. I think a lot of small town lawyers do that. That's goes with the territory. You're sort of a resource person in the community. So I suppose if I had $100 for every free consultation I gave, that would amount to a fair bit of money.
But then you're not doing that 10 times a day.